How many times do you get somebody like that coming to visit you on a Saturday with ways to be able to hear you and you're not talking to her? How many times do you get somebody like that coming to visit you on a Saturday with ways to be able to hear you and you're not talking to her? Hello there. And yes, that is from my investigation, and I heard the part from Sloss, so that was a lot of fun. And if you have not been to Sloss Furnaces in Birmingham, Alabama, you have got to go. It is such a great place. Even if you're just exploring it, if you're not a paranormal investigator, it has the most interesting history and it's very well preserved. There's a museum with a film you can watch about the history of it. It's just amazing. But if you're a ghost hunter, well, that's a whole different thing. So I am really excited about tonight's episode of Fate because I am going to be going to Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Y'all know that. And it's going to be the first week of April, into the first week of April. And it's going to be such a thing. It's the Eureka Springs Ozark Mountain UFO Conference. And I've gone for several years now. I've met some of the most interesting people in the world. That's where I finally got to meet Stanton Friedman face to face. I was such a blessed girl that weekend because we got to just sit down, because I'd interviewed him, I think twice, and it was so fantastic because I actually got to sit down face to face with him because he sold out all of his books in like 15 minutes once he got down there. And hello, Robert Gorman. He says if I'm excited, he's excited. So I like that. That's a good friend right there. But Eureka Springs is special. I had met Linda Moulton Howe at a couple of different events and Richard, but the face-to-face interpersonal conversations that you can have, you get to know people, you get to learn more about their history, you get to share experiences, get to have experiences sometimes. It's a really interesting place. But it's a cool beans kind of thing, and it's my favorite conference simply because of the access that you have to the speakers, and that's for everybody. The first time I went there, my friend Chase Klotsky was doing her first presentation ever. And I was so glad to be there for that because she's a very special woman and we've been friends for a long time. She used to be the host of Fate Magazine Radio. In fact, she was when I met her, but I didn't know it. I just knew that she was doing a live broadcast from somewhere back when that wasn't normal. And it was fun. But my guest tonight is a speaker this year. She is somebody that is, she's pretty interesting in her own right. I'm interested in her topic for her conference topic because it's not something that I was really familiar with. Her name is Melinda Greer, Dr. Melinda Greer. She is really special. She's a retired pediatric medical doctor. She's from Oklahoma, or she lives in Oklahoma. She has had so many different experiences, from mystical to paranormal to UFO experiences. Mainly, she just lives around the bazaar, pretty much. She is somebody that has actually contributed. You've heard Ray Hernandez talk with me before, but she participated with him and contributed a chapter to his book that's amazing. But we're going to talk about that too. She's going to discuss the topic at the conference of the super experiencer, which is somebody who has had all kinds of anomalous experiences, from paranormal to abduction to just sightings, missing time. I think a lot of people have had missing time and just write it down to daydreaming and stuff, and it's not. Sometimes it could be, but a true missing time experience is bizarre. I've had them. and nobody really talks about them very much, but I'm going to see if I can get her to. I bet I can. But she is going to be sharing a lot, and she's going to be sharing a lot tonight. So let's get her in here because y'all don't want to listen to me all night. Hey, Melinda.
Hey,
how are you?
I'm good. We have great weather today.
Huh?
We had great weather today. We had storms yesterday, so it was nice to have great
Us,
weather today.
us too.
Yeah.
But y'all are just going to have to keep those up there if you don't mind too much. They are scary when they hit, I tell you.
Mm-hmm.
But well, you've got no mountains or anything to really slow them down, do you?
We have hills, and we're on the very edge of the Ozark Mountains, so we have some topography that I didn't have when I grew up in central Oklahoma, where it's the Great Plains. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Kind of a
nice here.
Dorothy thing there.
I'm in northeast Oklahoma near Fayetteville, Arkansas, so it's
Okay, I didn't know that's where that was.
well, it's about an hour away, but that's a major city nearby.
That's well, thank you so much for being here because when we talked to schedule this, I enjoyed you so much. I thought you were fun and interesting. And when I started reading about the super experiencer thing, I know a lot of people like that. I mean, you've had all kinds of experiences. I mean, you just really run the gamut, and I'd like it if we could talk about those some. And I feel like that probably is where. Well, let me ask you this: before, what age did you start having your experiences?
Um, my first anomalous experience was when I was about 5 years old, and it was either a near death or a near death like experience. And a near death like experience, you have a lot of the same things that occur in a near death experience. It's just that you weren't necessarily going to die. And I don't know, I was only 5 years old. I was very, very sick, but I don't know if I would have died or not. I felt like
Yeah.
I was going to die when I was put to bed that night. I felt like I was going to die. And I remember thinking I was going to die. And that little song that you sung as a child, "Now I lay me down to sleep." I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. I remember singing that song, because I really thought I was going to die. I really felt that sick. So
That's awful.
yeah.
I
And
mean, that really is awful
I don't know
because,
why my parents didn't realize how sick I was, because I'd been bitten by a cat. And looking back on it from the standpoint of a pediatrician, I'm pretty sure I was septic and, quite sick and had a very swollen arm, cellulitis, the whole 9 yards. And so, looking back on it, I was a pretty sick kid, so I could have died. But
you could have died just from the cellulitis.
yeah.
I mean, I've had that. That's horrible stuff. Mine was post-op, and it was like I didn't know I was in trouble. Right? I'm just a patient,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody around me is like, hair on fire, but very medically proficient, but hair on fire. But going and just from that, that's trippy.
Yeah.
Excuse me. We've got weather, all the stuff blew through. So I sound like the wrath of God.
We have allergens going on here too, so everything's
Okay.
blooming. So
Yes.
yeah.
Well,
So anyway, that's when the trajectory of my life changed course. Was when I was somewhere around 4 to 6. I'm not sure. I would say 5, but I'm not sure. It was somewhere in that. It was before I went to school. I know that.
well, what kind of stuff was happening before you went to school?
After that experience, before that experience, nothing. I was just a normal kid in a Christian community, in the center of Oklahoma. My dad taught at the local Christian college. Just normal kid, went to church all the time and,
Yeah.
Played hard and, and, had all the usual childhood diseases and that sort of thing. And just normal, happy childhood. And after that happened, I never told my parents about it. I never told my friends about it. I never told anybody about it. It was very personal and it was meant for me. But after that happened, I had a lot of things that were different in my life. I would say I no longer accepted because of the experience, I no longer accepted the faith of my parents, just, just whole hog.
Right.
I questioned it all the time, and just, I was just a different person. So I had like invisible, they're not imaginary friends. They weren't imaginary. I could feel them and I could sense them. And they were like invisible guides that would help me through life. Because I was a very introverted, naive child, and could not figure out social dynamics at all. I'm still pretty introverted and not great. I don't have great social skills. But anyway, they helped me navigate that. I would be sitting there in a corner watching human beings be human beings and wonder why they were acting the way they were acting. And it would just, a huge concept would just be laid into my mind way beyond my years, explaining everything to me. So they did that all the time. Just these, I would call them downloads now. I didn't have a word for them then. Just explaining, human dynamics. And they really helped me navigate being a human being a lot. So, but it was a very profound experience, very profound for a kid that age.
Well, sure. I mean, I was an only child until I was 7 and an only grandchild. So I had a lot of interaction with grown-ups,
Mm-hmm.
but because if my mom wanted to play bridge, she just took me with her to wherever the bridge party was,
Mm-hmm.
or, things like that. And if she wanted to go out to lunch with her girlfriends, she took me. So we had kids when I got a little older, we had kids in the neighborhood, but there were 3 girls. So there's always the odd one out. And sometimes it was your turn and sometimes it wasn't. But I had a lot of weirdness at that point too. Not quite like that as far as getting downloads to my knowledge, but I had a lot of dream things.
I had dreams, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And my dad was very fortunate that it was during Vietnam, and he was in a unit that was getting ready to ship out, and they had built a jump school, a parachuting school in Birmingham, and he was moved to teach there. And so his unit shipped out without him. I mean, he had to stay and train people to go do that. And his best friend and a lot of his unit died. They were attacked by the Viet Cong, and which happened to a lot of people. And I think my dad had some residual, always relief, but residual guilt too, because he always took care of of his friend's widow, my friend's mom, and just made sure that she was okay. And then she moved away, but always connected there. And I was always connected to that because he was my godfather.
Ah,
and
okay.
so so that was very weird. But I didn't do like you did. Downloads might have helped. So, but I would have dreams like with grandmothers and grandmothers that weren't my grandmothers. And
yes, you're one of the few people I've ever met that has those kind of dreams. I would dream I was other people, and I would be like an adult male, or a person of the other opposite sex, different age, with different memories of different relatives that I don't have in this life. I've never met anybody that
really,
yeah.
that's a little freaky. I've never met anybody else. I've never read about it.
I once dreamed I was an alien. I mean,
Did
you're talking about the Vietnam War. Okay, so this was a weird dream. I'll have to tell you. You want to hear it?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so I mean, it happened when I was asleep, so I have to call it a dream, but it was very vivid and undream-like. I have regular dreams, and this was very different. So I'm not sure where I'm at. but I'm in a roundish room. It's very futuristic. It's like nothing I've ever seen. I'm about 12 years old at the time, but it's like nothing I've ever seen in my life. It's round. It has like stadium seating type terrace desks. And it's an ovoid.
It's
And
like a lecture room, right?
yes. And on a wall across from me, I'm the only person that I remember being there. I don't remember anybody else being there, but there was somebody behind me that was directing the whole thing. And on the wall, and this was before we had big screen TVs even. We had the old cathode ray tube things that were black and white in my home anyway.
Yes.
We didn't have color yet, I don't think. So on the wall suddenly appears writing, and then there's a finger that's following the writing like across the wall. And so I'm reading this story, and it's a story of a battle. And I had been having, you talk about Vietnam. It was during the Vietnam era, because I was born in 57. I was about 12 when this happened. And I'm conflicted about what's going on with the war. I don't like it. I don't understand why people fight. Why do we have to have wars? I was very conflicted, and I was, questioning it a lot. So then I have this crazy dream. So I'm watching this finger go across this text along the wall that's showing this like a page out of a book. And so I'm reading about this battle. It was in cursive writing. I remember it distinctly. And then all of a sudden it switched from being the written word to being like a video. We didn't have videos like that back then. We had movie projectors, but this wasn't like that. This was like a screen on a wall, like it's nothing I'd ever seen. And I'm watching this battle. So instead of reading about it and being described, I'm actually watching it. And I'm seeing it, and it's gory. I mean, there's blood flying everywhere, but it's not humans. They're aliens. And they were like, I want to say kind of insectoid. They were upright bipedal, but they had chitin on their bodies, where we would have prominent skeleton like our collarbone and things like that, where we would have prominent. They had chitin like an insect, and very, very non-human. And there's one person in the center that's, really the focus of the video or whatever it is, the focus. And so all of a sudden I'm sucked into him, and I'm seeing everything from his perspective, and I am him. And it's a he. They had males and females, and it's a he, and he's a warrior. And it was like he gloried in battle. That's what he was meant for. That's what he was born to do. That's what his whole species did. This was just a part of their being, was to battle and to war and to kill and to maim. And he was good at it. He was particularly good at it. So
were they battling him? Was he in danger? Was he being harmed?
It was hand to hand. It was, there weren't projectile weapons or anything like that. This was all, axes, knives. This was hand to hand, brutal, primitive battle. And so like 12, and a female, a girly girl, didn't do this kind of stuff. And so, here I am, and I could feel everything he felt, and just he was glorying in it. He was in his element. He loved it. And then all of a sudden, after experiencing that for a while, then all of a sudden I'm sucked back out, and I'm sitting back in the seat, and I'm watching, and I'm seeing both the written text and the video side by side, and at the same time I'm perceiving what he felt, all three at the same time. It was really, very strange.
That's trippy.
Yeah. And so then, I wake up the next morning. I remembered it vividly, and I remember it to this day very vividly. It was like unlike any dream. But I felt like it was to be a warrior. And he didn't care if he died. That would fulfill his purpose. So it was very strange, very strange. But I would have dreams like that were, I called them teaching dreams. Yes. I would question something about why something was, or I needed to learn a lesson, and I'd have a dream that would teach me what I needed to learn.
I
So,
still get those sometimes. If I'm having a struggle with something,
mhm.
then I will, yeah. I was recently diagnosed with ADHD,
Okay.
and which is trippy, but it's a whole different way of looking at the things that are normal mannerisms for me now. I mean, that have been for a little while. And hey, Lorraine, that would be my friend Lori. But it's just so interesting because if I get in a bind where I can't figure something out, and I'm just like, there has to be a way to do this. Other people do this. I know I can find this if I can just focus. Well, that's iffy. But I don't get prophetic dreams like I used to because I kind of one time said, this is really enough of this. And somebody somewhere respected that to a degree. So I don't see about people I hear about anymore. But it's just one of those things that I'm glad I don't get that that you experience. I do not like gore. I do not like blood and guts. I am one of the few people I know. I don't watch any scary movies. I don't watch, anything weird. But well, I do watch things that are weird. I have a friend that's a stuntman, so I try to see some of the things. Not many of the things he's in because they're blood and guts, but there's that. But it's just wild. I can't believe that you do that too. I mean, I don't
Well,
know anybody else that does it either.
I don't dream as often that I'm other people anymore, and I call it dream, but it's not like a dream. Dreams
Yeah, it's
are strange and disjointed, and you wake up and you're like, "How could I ever believe that in the dream?" It was just too weird. I should never have believed that. I should have known I was dreaming. That sort of thing. That's a
yeah,
real dream. These are like living, and
experiences.
it's a true like experience. But it wasn't like a past life or anything like that because it was set in the same setting as what modern day. So, I mean, I still have dreams where I'm other people. That's not to the extent that I had as a child. I mean, I had that a lot as a child, and it was a good thing because it really helped me navigate. Like I said, that also helped me navigate being a human being, and because I wasn't born knowing the stuff that a lot of human beings seem to just know naturally through instinct. I had to learn it, the social dynamics and things like that. I just I wasn't born knowing it. And some people just seem to take to it naturally. I don't know.
I don't. I don't know either. But I have three really good questions for you. Are you
Okay,
ready?
I'm ready.
So, and Robert is my hero, so you're going to love him.
Okay.
And he's being very professional with you. What does Dr. Greer think about the possibilities and aftermath of disclosure? We could be here for a week.
Well, number one, I'm Melinda, not Dr. Greer, because I'm retired. So I'm Melinda now. After disclosure, I think it's going to have to happen. I think if humans don't initiate it, then I think it may be taken out of our hands.
I think so too. I
Because
think it's being
reached
taken out of our hands.
Yeah. So I think it'll happen, but it's the most profound effects, I think, will be not necessarily financial or political, but religious. I think it's going to have a profound effect on a lot of religions that won't be able to accept it.
It would be hard for it not to.
Yeah.
Because, the whole people that are religious that I know now who are aware that this is a real thing and are also just waiting for it to go public, really public, are more along the lines of, well, everything was created. This doesn't negate God.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I would agree with that. Everything came from somewhere. And, if this is what you need for your living, then it's going to help with that.
Right.
It will come up to an issue of are there more than one, maybe, depending on who is disclosed to us first.
Right.
But I do think I agree with you. I think that we have had to a degree disclosure already, but people aren't satisfied. And for it to be really melodramatic and great big and huge and, woo kind of stuff, that hasn't happened yet.
Right.
But there are a lot of experiencers who are taken very seriously. And our government has basically said, yeah, there's stuff there. It's not a secret. It's but people want written down, government says this, da, 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 da. Well, it's beyond the president. President's just a figurehead anyway.
Right.
And, there's not really, that's not who's going to be in charge of disclosure. It's going to be all the men behind the curtain. And that's going to be giving a lot of power away.
Yes.
Because it's easy to control people when they think that the person on the other side of the globe is the enemy, or think, it's, or the person that doesn't think like I do, or the person who doesn't talk like I do. It's really easy to make somebody like that an enemy in your society. But when you have people globally facing something that they think could annihilate them, I think that a lot of the angst and anger with each other will be gone until we learn how to deal with what's coming, with what's real, as far as they look different, they travel different. I'm sure they sound different. If they don't have a device to help us translate, we're going to have to get the, Google Translate earbud so that we can try that. There's going to have to be communication things.
It's certainly going to rattle our paradigm and change our focus on our place in the universe and what it means to be human. And, we're going to have to accept that we're not as important as we think we are. And
we're probably not the top of the food chain.
No.
Like mindset, learning abilities, that kind of thing.
Right.
Or maybe it is a real food chain. I don't know. Who knows what's out there? But
it's the uncertainty that's going to be such a overwhelming factor, I think.
Yes, I think so too. Because Robert says telepathy needs no translators. And I'm like, it does not. But you know what? I think in English. So I think that telepathy is good, but they're going to be using their communication form. So we're going to have to learn each other. They'll already know us, but they will not, we will not be quite ready, I think, for them. But
I don't know, because I had an experience with telepathy that still rattles me to this day. It shakes me up pretty badly. Really? And I didn't know their language. So, I'm not, I think telepathy is telepathy. I think it's directly mind to mind. Instead of having the abstract of a word, you have the original impulse. The
original concept.
Behind it's more of a, So I don't think you have to have language. I don't think language has to be a factor.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
When this happened, I didn't get, verbatim speech from them. It was more feelings and emotions and what they were thinking, rather than I wasn't meant to hear. It wasn't meant to happen. And but I was, for whatever reason, I was capable of overhearing their conversation. And I say conversation, it wasn't verbal at all. It wasn't audible at all. But
still communication, though.
Still communication, yeah. So,
well, can I ask, and don't answer if you're not comfortable, but what was the scenario involved there where you didn't know, you didn't think you were supposed to?
I'm fine talking about it, but it rattles me to this day. But I was at a place near where I lived at the time. I would live in Southeast Oklahoma near what's called the Talamina Drive. It's a famous scenic drive along what's called Winding Stair Mountain in the Ouachita Mountains of Southeast Oklahoma. And I was at a place called Horse Thief Springs, and it was an old Civilian Conservation Corps picnic area. So built back in the CCC days. What was it, 1920s, I think? Great Depression. Yeah, it was a Great Depression era. And so anyway, I was there, and it was a nice, pretty sunny winter day, kind of like now. And well, it wasn't spring, it was winter. And I was just enjoying the sunshine, and I was there on the top of the mountainside at Horse Thief Springs, which is an actual springs where horse thieves used to water their horses back in the day. So that's where it got its name. But so I'm standing there, and all of a sudden, down in the valley, I heard what sounds like somebody chopping wood, like a half a mile away. And I was over to my right. And I'm sitting there thinking, nobody chops wood anymore. What am I hearing? My husband's the only one that still chops wood. Everybody else uses a chainsaw. And then all of a sudden, to my left, about the same, like, it was like, here's chopping wood, way down in the valley. Wow. And I'm thinking, well, that's weird. And then in rapid succession, it goes from the sound of wood chopping to the sound to a little bit closer, and it sounded like horses trotting, like their shod hooves hitting rocks. And there was a whole bunch of horses trotting in front of me down the valley, but closer to me. And then it came closer, and it was more like listening to horses running. And then it came closer, and it was like listening to stampeding cattle. And then it just came up the mountain, just zipped up the mountain towards me. And it became higher and higher and finer until it was not audible anymore. It was just a vibration. And then it came up, and it just zipped up the mountain and stopped right at my feet.
Holy cow.
And it was, after it happened, everything was still. There was like no sound. The birds weren't singing. It was just total silence. And I remember seeing one leaf falling from a tree and just kind of falling down through the air. And I'm thinking, cool. It didn't scare me at all. Even though it stopped at my feet, it didn't scare me. I was just intrigued and just kind of awestruck and wondering what the heck that was. Was it seismic? Was it some type of earthquake? What was that? So I'm looking around for a trail to get down below to see if I can figure out what was going on. And as I'm thinking that, all of a sudden up above me, over the tree line, I felt two beings. And I can't explain what it's like to feel beings, because I've never had anything like this before or since. But I could feel that there were two beings. They felt male, and I couldn't see anything. I looked in that direction, and I could feel that they were scrutinizing me, and that it sounds crazy. It's absolutely bonkers.
No, it doesn't sound crazy. I mean,
but I could feel them, and they were like the one on the left had a proprietary air towards me, like he was responsible for me in some way, or like a sense of ownership. You okay?
I'm sorry. 'Tis the season.
It is that time of year, yes. So anyway, one of them acted like he owned me or was responsible for me, like a scientist would feel about a lab rat. that same type of, like I was a specimen. And
Oh
it
my gosh.
irritated the socks off of me
I'm
because
sure it did.
no, as human beings, we don't like to think of ourselves as being,
Less than.
less than at all. And the other one didn't have anything to do with me in any way. It's just that they were communicating to each other about me, but I was able to overhear them. And the one that had this sense of proprietary ownership of me said something to the effect of like, she's impossible. Like it was said with a sense of kind of exasperation, but pride too. And like if you had a one-trick pony that could count, or
Yes.
if you had a precocious child that could, speak before they could,
or that refuses to, and you're trying to do it. Yes.
Or whatever. That's the way it was. It was like, she's impossible. Only there wasn't a spoken word. It was an impression. It was felt. And it just irritated me so much. And then as soon as the irritation faded, I was freaked out and scared and weirded
Thank
out.
God for the irritation, right?
In a way that whatever that rattling up the mountainside towards me hadn't scared me, but this scared me because I'd never experienced telepathy before. And it really rattled me, and it still does to this day, and it irks me too.
Well, it would irk me too.
I felt it very irksome to be the subject of somebody's, science experiment or whatever.
Right.
And they were trying to scare me. They were trying to scare me.
They were trying to get a reaction.
It was deliberate. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah.
Well, Robert Gorman is one of my heroes. I love him, and he is bringing all the things. And but he was like Oz effect, that all the things happening around you to stimulate a reaction from you, Oz effect. But he also says, when we're talking about disclosure, he was like, Earthlings get upset over Super Bowl halftime shows. This will not be pretty. So, I love him. I really do. But
it's
it's he also said that disclosure might not be rainbows and unicorns. The snowballing consequences of it. And I think one of the reasons I genuinely don't think that we have been, hi Ingrid, we have been told anything is because we're so violent. Even as a species, we're violent. And, you have your docile people, and you have I don't think anybody's truly docile if you hit the right button. But it's just well, right? I mean, we all have our thing. I do have my sacred ox. So, but genuinely, as a species, we are not peaceful people. And so it's really frustrating because I'm like, I will see craft, I will see things around me. And I'm like, what must they be thinking? Seriously, what must they be thinking? I'm so sorry. I'm not really, don't judge my species by me, because I do have, but it's just so, sometimes I think that they're going to be like, grandfather mountain kind of relationship, and then other times I'm like, boy, we really need some discipline down here. Everybody's going crazy. And, you look at things like this past week, right? And it's like, we're trying to prevent nuclear warfare by having warfare.
Right.
And
why is there not a better alternative?
Yes. And I mean, I'm fairly conservative just in my thinking, because I think everybody should just be allowed to do what the hell they want to do, and everybody else mind their own business, as long as you're not harming,
Right.
Do no harm and you're okay. And very few people think that. And people think I'm nuts for thinking that. But, there's so much that we can do better. And it would be nice. I'm not afraid of it happening. I mean, I'm 64 years old. You know, things are going to happen eventually anyway. That's not an issue. I just think that it just needs to be something that we're a little bit more open to, and we're not trying to figure out how to blast Mars or, you know, building Star Wars to be able to do, you know, things. And I think that we need to be doing something more than sending a gold record with our exact location to people we don't know, and just start putting out universally, we're positive, we are excited, we would like to meet you. If you have something to teach us, we want to know about that. And just, you don't even need a craft.
Right.
I mean, you can just put that out, and on its way to go wherever, I feel like, and you can correct me, I feel like it affects us too. You know, I feel like we can truly affect each other if we focus that way, in a positive way. I know we do the negative a lot. We do the negative already. But if you can do the negative, you can do the positive.
Right.
You know, it's not rocket science. Well, maybe for some people it's rocket science, but it's not. We're geared that way. And somewhere along the line it turned into negativity.
Right.
And, you know, like decades and decades ago and centuries ago, maybe with an apple. I don't know. Maybe that was the fallen one, you know. But it's so interesting to think of the different things. What is the most interesting, and you can't go too big because we still have an hour and 20 minutes. I know. But what is the thing that has shook you the most as far as that type of experience?
The thing that probably had the most profound transformative, you know, aspect of it was the near-death experience that I had as an adult. That was in 2013. As far as positive, I've had some scary experiences, like missing time and things like that, you know, were scary. But I think the most positively transformative one was the near-death experience I had when I was 55 in 2013. So it was awesome. I highly recommend death.
Well, I mean, I've had one, but what happened with yours?
So I'd been flown to a regional hospital in Tulsa called Oklahoma Heart Hospital, like the night before. They thought I had a dissecting aortic aneurysm, which is where your aorta coming out of your heart's about to explode. Yeah. And they'd actually taken me to the OR. I'd signed my rights away. They'd taken me to the OR and had me set up with my A negative blood in the heart lung machine, you know, the bypass machine, and everything ready to go. And then they decided to do what's called a transesophageal echocardiogram, where they stuff a probe down your esophagus to see what your heart's doing, and decided that I didn't have a dissecting aortic aneurysm, but there was something abnormal there. So the next day, after I recovered from the anesthesia and everything, they put me in a wheelchair and were wheeling me, and I needed to go to another building across the road that was literally, I needed to have what was called an MRA, which is a type of MRI. And the machine to do that was across the road. So had to go down an elevator through a long tunnel underneath the road, and we were headed towards the elevator at the other side, getting ready to go up. And my nurse was literally reaching out to push the button when I start losing my vision. And I told her, you know, something's not right. I think I'm about to pass out. I need to get down on the floor, you know. And then I started losing my hearing, and you know, you're about to go. Yep. So the last thing I remembered was trying to get out of the wheelchair and get down on the floor, get flat, because that's what you do when you're about to pass out. And she yanked me up by my hair and my hospital gown to keep me in the wheelchair and whip me around. And that's the last thing I remembered, until all of a sudden I'm laying on my back, looking up. I still don't have my peripheral vision back, so it's like I'm looking out of a well because I just had central vision. And I see this bald head looking into my central vision. And he says to somebody behind him, she's back. And somebody was like fumbling underneath my gown. Somebody over here to the right said, "Do you have seizures?" talking to me. And I said, no. He asked if I had epilepsy. I said, no. And then I felt somebody was fumbling under my gown. And when I say felt, I could feel him. I could feel his energy in a way that I don't as a human being. I'm very intuitive, but I don't usually feel energies like that. I mean, I could feel that he was young, he was scared.
Right.
I could feel his emotions and things like that. And he was fumbling under my gown, and I realized he was trying to get defibrillator pads on me. And I, when I came back to consciousness, he asked the guy behind me, "Do I still need to put these on her?" And I remember thinking, yes, your patient just died. You need to get them on her. Quit worrying about
Do it now.
Quit worrying about modesty. Just rip the gown, cut it, whatever, get them on. And then when I said that in my head, your patient just died, then this whole flooding of memories came in about being on the other side. And so I remembered leaving my body and zooming up into this white light. I don't remember a tunnel. I don't remember any dearly departeds or, spiritual teachers or guys. I don't remember anything. I zoomed straight up to this area of white that was nothing but love and light. It was just pure love and this incredible white light. And that's all there was. And I rejoined my group of beings that I had been with since I was, since I began being in this universe. And I'm not talking about being Melinda Greer. I'm talking about what I am, beyond the human body. And so anyway, I rejoined them, and there wasn't a life review. It was more of I was able to just download all of my memories and all my thoughts and the whole experience of being Melinda Greer into this great database. And then I was uploaded with what I needed to know to catch up with what the group had been involved with. So, but there was no time there. It's hard to explain how there's no time, but yet there's sequential things happening. I don't understand, but there's like a timelessness there. And anyway, I got to just relax and recover, and it was a great reunion, I would say, being back there. But the love was incredible. The love was just overwhelming, and it was awesome. But the love was being generated, and what it was being generated by was off in the distance and away from us, but yet it was generating the light and it was generating the love. And we all wanted to be where it was at, but yet, we were confined into a different area. Did you lose me? I lost you?
I lost both of us. I didn't see either one of us for a minute there, but it scared me because we had the little spinner things going. So, but now we're back, so it's all good.
Okay.
But
anyway, it was just pure love, pure light, but wanting to be wherever that source was of the love and light, wanting to be there. So there was something else that I wanted to attain that was greater than what I was in that state of being, if that makes any sense.
It does.
And at some point it became, everything was telepathic. Everything, we didn't have bodies. We were like energy beings. Everything was surround sound, surround sensory. Everything was like 365 spherical incoming data. We had senses that I don't have as a human being. I could sense things, energies and things like that. And I remember going off and doing things in the physical realm, but I wasn't trapped in the physical realm like I am as a human being. You're trapped here until you die, and then you get freed from this. So anyway, it was an awesome experience. And
it sounds like it. It sounds like.
Well, at some point it was decided that I needed to come back here for reasons that aren't real clear. And I wish I knew why. So when I came back, I was yelling at the CVICU team that was resuscitating me or working on the whole resuscitation process. I yelled at them and was crying and carrying on and had a conniption fit. And so that was,
What were you saying?
why did you bring me back to this awful place? It was so wonderful there. Everybody loved everyone. Why did you bring me back here? It just, yeah, I was sobbing. I was beside myself.
Did anybody address that with you afterward?
Not really. They all tiptoed around me. They didn't want to talk about it. In my chart, they wrote things like, some of them would write that I had asystole, and some of them called it bradycardia with prolonged pause.
What is that?
Bradycardia is where your heart slows, and then a pause would be where it stops, which is asystole.
Okay.
Where your heart stops. I mean, they just tiptoed around. It was just crazy, and they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to talk about it at all. So,
yes. And Robert says you're the real deal, and I'm like, yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just so bizarre to think that you come back, right?
I think you've frozen again. I can't hear you or see you.
Okay. And here we are.
Now you're back. Okay.
But, it's so bizarre to have, because I know physicians that would have dealt with it exactly like that, because they know that you've gone. They know you were gone. And yet, when they get you back and you're fussing them out and saying that, they know that was real.
Yeah.
They knew that was real. And they tippy-toed. They just blew it off.
They talked about it afterwards. I know that because I recently had some arrhythmias and problems, and I had to go see a local cardiologist, and I ended up seeing a physician's assistant. And he used to work there at Oklahoma Heart Institute, and he remembered the whole thing, and I remembered them talking about me afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
So it was funny because they wouldn't talk to my face.
That is so, that's wrong.
That
is wrong.
I needed psychiatric counseling after that. I really, because it took me a while to.
You at least needed to be, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I would have been so mad. I would have gone and found them. I would have. Sometimes I'm feisty, just a little bit. But, I don't understand why people who that's their day in, day out, what they do every time. I know that a lot of hospitals are set up with things, with trips, with signage above that's not visible. It's on top of cabinetry. It's right. It's tucked away, and I know that because I have friends that work in there, and people see those signs. People bring back information. People bring back stuff that, it's just so much. And that's just one of the other things that we get treated like children, or worse, really, because we educate children. And, if we have these experiences, then I have friends who have had alien interaction, real alien interaction. I don't know what's happening with this. I think it's our topic, but but it's so frustrating because they will not talk about what happened to them. They talk about it to me because we're friends, right? But if I were to ask them to be on here, they would have a conniption fit. I mean, they just would.
Well, that's the thing is when I came back, it was with, I would say, a compulsion I'm impelled to talk about not only my near-death experience, but all the other weirdness that I've hidden all the rest of my life. I mean, I've hidden it, except talking to my husband about it or selected friends, people that aren't going to judge me too harshly. But
6 ways to Sunday, but they'll still love you, right?
I certainly didn't talk to my colleagues at work about it and things like that.
Yeah.
But then after my near-death experience, I saw ghosts for several years. And that's not an unusual thing. If you research it, that's not unusual for people that have had near-death experiences to suddenly see ghosts, but it's not necessarily forever. It just, anyway, for several years at the hospital, I would see ghosts and I would actually talk about it. I mean, with my colleagues and with the nurses and things like that. And it was amazing how many of them also had seen things, but they wouldn't talk about it until I approached the subject, and then that gives them permission to talk about their own experiences. So
Robert says disclosure is more than aliens and more than afterlife. I mean, there's so much. And when you started sharing to the extent that you have, what was your impetus to start doing that?
Again, I returned immediately talking about the near-death experience. I talked about it with family. I talked about it with the nurses. I talked about it with the doctors in the room. They didn't want to hear it, but I talked to them about it. Not like the one when I was a child where I just kept it all to myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you're a little more assertive, I'm sure, after your education and background.
Right. Yeah. But yeah. The childhood one was a little different. It was still the love, the unconditional love and being surrounded by it. But instead I was in space. I was like shown galaxies and
I would have loved that.
Yeah, solar systems and galaxies and how there were energies that passed between the galaxies, and it was beautiful. And but I still had that all-pervading love, and it was wonderful.
That's probably if I could do anything, if I could pick an experience to have, that would be it.
Because as a child, we didn't even have television at that time. My parents' church didn't believe in television, so I'd never seen. I mean, maybe I'd seen a drawing in a book of a galaxy or a solar system, but I'd never seen anything like that. No movies. We weren't allowed to see movies. I'd never seen anything. And to be out there and to be actually out in space, it was astonishing. And I never forgot it. And I never forgot that love. And that's why I couldn't accept my parents' religion, because I didn't ever feel that love like I had that with that experience. So,
well, don't you think that sometimes this is a real delicate thing to say, but the actual love of seeing creation and interacting with the creator being maybe is much different from forced down your throat, all the rules around you making you stay in a bubble, religious type thing.
Right.
That kind of religion is much different than a personal experience kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I get in trouble for that a lot. Well, but it's true. I mean, I have found it to be true.
It is. And when, like in my case, I've had a whole lifetime of existential crises and ontological shocks. I mean, existential crises, I think everybody kind of knows what that is. An ontological shock is where you get your paradigm shattered. And I've had more paradigms shattered than I can talk about, because, I mean, basically my training was as a scientist. And when you're trained as a scientist and you believe in the scientific method, then, that's the hammer you use on every nail. And when things prove you wrong and prove that whole paradigm wrong, and you see things that you aren't supposed to see or perceive, then, it shakes your very foundation. And when you have a series of those, and that's what being the super experiencer part is not just it's not just like being a psychic medium and having that experience. I mean, I think that would be the coolest thing ever, to be a psychic or a medium or a psychic medium. I just can't imagine. I think that would be awesome. I wouldn't have thought that several decades ago, but I think that
I have just enough of that to keep things interesting. So
well, that's good. But
sometimes.
But to have a whole gamut of different types of experiences, it shocks the psyche, but it also, I wouldn't trade it for a minute. I mean, some of it's been pretty scary, but I wouldn't trade any of it because it's all taught me not to fear. I think I lost you again.
I'm back.
You're back.
I don't know what is happening here, but we're coming back, so I'm going to take it, right?
Okay.
And it's not but for a few seconds, but we both spin out. And sometimes we go one at a time, and sometimes we both go at the same time. So, Robert, I want you to expand on that thought and put a comment expounding on that. But I think that when I saw your talk was going to include super experiencer and the 5 things that constitute that, I've never heard that term.
It's new. Yeah.
I like it.
It's I mean, there's 10 categories. So I started being called a super experiencer by Ray Hernandez. I think you probably
that would be appropriate. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, and then he introduced me to Sean Esbjorn Hargens, who is at the California Institute for Human Sciences, and he's the one that is doing the WISER survey. The WISER stands for Worldwide Initiative for Super Experiencer Research, and he's the one doing that. And so there's 10 categories of what they have put out as experience types. So you have everything from out-of-body experience, near-death experience, encounters with non-human intelligence or non-human apparitions. No, non-physical humans. That's it. Non-physical humans. Mystical experiences, expanded self experiences. So expanded self experiences is where you recall a past life, a future life, or a parallel life, or you have an experience where you meet an oversoul or God or some type of experience like that. Or you can meet a soul group or become aware of a soul destiny. That's all expanded self. What else? Psychic experiences, paranormal experiences, noetic dreams, permeable self. That's interesting to me because that's like channeling or being possessed, like being possessed or channeling or merging with other people. Like that's what I have when I'm in that weird dream state. Okay, so an example of a permeable self for me would be a few months back, I was asleep and I had one of those weird dreams where I'm someone else. And I was a early adolescent boy. And here I am, 68 years old, and I'm back to the pimples and awkwardness and being male, which I have never been in this life.
That's just a mean one.
And so I'm in him, and he's wandering around in this outbuilding on his dad's property. And so I'm wandering around in there as him, and I see that there's a pipe leaking, like attached to a water heater or something. And I think, I need to go tell Dad that the pipe's leaking. And so I go out of the outbuilding, and it's a pretty day, and I'm a kid, and I got distracted. And I remember there was an old, like a junk recliner sitting out, like an old Naugahyde recliner sitting out in the yard. And so I sit in it, and I'm kind of chubby and overweight. And I'm wearing these polyester synthetic shorts, and they catch on my sweaty shorts catch on the sofa, and they come down, And so I'm instantly mortified, like any adolescent
Right.
would be when their
Yes.
shorts came down, when they scooted back on this recliner. And then I hear somebody coming up behind me, and I realize it's probably my dad, and he's going to catch me with my pants down.
Oh, no.
And so all of a sudden, I come out of that experience, and I remember swooping out of his head, my focus of being
Whoa.
swooping out of
Yeah.
his head and going back behind him, and then going down into the body of his father and getting the perspective of his father, and feeling that it was a really strange sense of exasperation and pride, wondering what is that boy doing now, because he could see the back of his head and it was all wiggly and everything.
Trying to get his shorts up.
Shorts up. It was, and then I woke up, and it was just such a weird experience to be two different individuals in such a short period of time. So that's permeable self,
That would
like
be so weird.
merging with other people and feeling other people's perspective, or channeling or possession, would be permeable self. And then the last of the 10, I think I got all the rest of them, is UFOs, which would include, encounters with non-human intelligences in a craft, missing time, abductions, things like that. So anyway, those are the 10 different categories, and I can nail all 10 of them.
Right.
So, but to be a super experiencer, they want you to have at least 5 of those categories, and it's not that uncommon, actually. They're discovering more and
I know
more.
people.
Not that
I
uncommon.
have. I might qualify.
I think
But,
you would.
you know,
Yeah.
and we just bounce right out. And back in.
And
But I know a lot of people that would qualify, I think. And
well, they
some
need to
of them,
take the survey.
I will tell them where to find it.
Superexperiencer.org.
There you go. That's easy enough. Superexperiencer.org. I'm going to put that in the comments.
Okay.
So if I could type. There you go. And it went everywhere. So yay. So when you if Ray coined that, and y'all are, because I know him and I know that he is doing all of the research. I mean, I love that guy. I love the work that he does. I love the groups that he puts together. And until you told me about having a chapter in Greater Realities, I did not know that. So because I went by your bio from the conference.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started researching you, I was really so taken with your history, because people don't talk about this being what happens, right? And it's just so bizarre to me that it's really not that unknown. Like I said, I know people that would qualify for 5 of those. Very few people with 10 for sure. But hi Nikki. But it's so interesting to me, the number of people, and maybe because of what I do, but I think it's just who is pulled into our orbit. Kind of like we seem to cluster sometimes.
Well, like when I go to a UFO conference, I'm happy to talk about UFOs. When I go to a Bigfoot conference, I'm happy to talk about Bigfoots. Yeah. But if you go to, a ghost hunting convention or whatever, you're not going to talk about the other 2 things, or they're going to chase you out of there. They just don't want to hear it, unless they've had those crossing, encounters with strangeness of different categories like that. And I think there's more people out there that have had that. They're just not willing to talk about it unless they're in the right setting.
Well, like you said, if you're not in that genre, then you stay with what these people paid to come here.
Well, I'm talking about not as a speaker. I'm talking about as a person in the audience. I mean, it's really hard to be a so-called super experiencer because because everybody looks at you like you're crazy. I mean, it's not acceptable to talk about seeing UFOs. It's not acceptable. It's somewhat acceptable to talk about having seen Bigfoot. But when you start talking about the whole gamut, you know, I had a near-death experience. I've seen Bigfoot. I've seen UFOs. You know, I've had missing time, and you know, you have the whole gamut of that, and people just tune you out and think you're nuts.
I think it's I think I think it's because people are hesitant. People are hesitant to put out that they too have experienced all this stuff because any of it, any of it alone
Mm-hmm.
in the right group is going to get, you know, you're going to be looked askance, right? It's like,
Right.
but you know, but it's really interesting because so many people, but because I've done this show. This show I've done for 5 years. I've done my other show that's called Paranormal Experience for 10 years. And I've talked to people from every edge of the spectrum relevant to anomalous experiences and research. And it's just really, there are a lot of people that would qualify under that.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, they need to take the survey because phase 1 is to get 5,000 people to take the survey. And
well, I will put that out there everywhere.
It's a long survey, so you plan to spend several hours at it. So,
Okay.
and you have to do it all at one setting.
Oh, so do it, before bed. So, because that's when I can be still the longest. But, I think it's really important because what are you trying to achieve with the survey?
They want to get 5,000 participants for phase 1, and that started actually last year. I don't know how many they've gotten so far, but the more the merrier. So they want 5,000 super experiencers. So they started out with saying 4 to 5 categories. Now they're saying 5 to 6 categories. So I don't know where they're going to land, somewhere in there.
There's no telling. Depends on what they get.
They're finding out there's more and more out there. So anyway, and so then they're going to whittle that 5,000 down and take 100 of them and do psychometric studies, which would be like intelligence tests and, you know, making sure they're sane.
I never said I was sane.
Psychological studies. And
Yes.
they'll also do in-depth interviews with about 100 participants that take the survey. And then...
Well, I think that's really important because
mm-hmm.
Because I would like to know why there's so many.
Right.
You know, if this is such an anomalous, odd thing, why are there so many? And I would like to know percentage wise. Yeah, I'd like to see this go forward. I would like to know the percentage of the population.
Well, actually, for my talk, I looked into that and I was amazed. So what I did was I went on Google and used the Google AI to find out. And so since it pulls together all the different studies that show, and let me think, expanded self and mystical were both 1/3 to 1/2 of the population have had an expanded self, which again is a past life, parallel life, future life, over soul, you know, that sort of thing, soul group type experience or mystical experience. 1/3 to 1/2 of the population have had that. And one of the big ones, let me think, non-human intelligence wasn't that much. It was only about 20%. Near-death experiences were only 5% of the population.
Really?
Right.
That's only
5%. But still, that's like 1 in 20. That's amazing.
Yeah, but still, that's...
Yeah.
I would think that would be higher.
And then, like, psychic experiences was pretty high in some. It went everywhere from like 30% to 75%. It was kind of out there. Yeah.
Interesting.
So it was a lot more than I thought. UFOs was only 20%. So 1 in 5. I would have thought it was more than that nowadays.
I would have thought that was much more than that.
Yeah.
But I do a lot of UFO conferences.
Mm-hmm.
So So I think that maybe I'm exposed to more people,
Well,
through that.
in my case, you've talked to Ray Hernandez. He talks about the consciousness modalities, and his idea is that all of these are ways that he thinks that consciousness is fundamental. Consciousness comes first, and the physical universe comes secondary to consciousness. And he thinks that all of these are different modalities for consciousness or source or whatever you want to call it, God, for want of a better word, to get in touch with us and shatter our paradigms and rattle our cage and get us to wake up and see that reality is not what we're being, fed, yeah,
Yes.
conditioned to believe. Yeah. So,
Well, that's I think that's an absolute, because we were not created. I'm a create not. We were not created to be lumps of clay sitting here to be molded by the powers that be to become worker bees.
right.
I think that to be a created spirit is to be. I mean, the spark came from somewhere. It's just such a big deal. And that's why I think that life is highly undervalued in our societies. And, that's just my opinion. But if you can come together from the concept that every one of us is a special created being with these abilities and interaction and stuff, then it makes you really less inclined off somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's
Or be dismissive of them, even.
yes. I mean, and it doesn't matter what your exterior looks like, because the interior is the part of us that matters.
Right.
And that should be true all over the place, regardless of whether you're able to talk to Aunt Sarah who died 57 years ago, or able to conjure up ET to come visit, or whatever your other skills are. Everybody has them if they will interact with them or allow them to develop. And I don't think I'm sorry, I'm doing the talking. So this is supposed to be a conversation, but it's about you. So, but I do think that what you're doing is so, and Ray, I think that is so important to be able to pull. It would pull us together so much.
Well, I don't know if you're aware of it, but his Greater Reality website has all of the books that he's put together from all the experiencers, and it has all the chapters. So
People can go look at it.
Yeah, people can look it up, and I think it's greaterreality.com, but it could be .org. I'm not sure which one it is.
It's calm.
I think it's calm.
Greater realities, plural. So, and y'all have heard me talk about him, and if you've been around long enough, you've heard him. So, he's just really one of those special humans that he's A, he's a genius,
Right.
but B, he's absolutely about getting information that would help us all to be able to understand what our greater reality can be.
Right.
And what it should be. It actually is. We just don't implement. So I think a lot about him. I think he is a wonderful person.
Yes, he is. And he's had some wonderful experiences of his own.
Yes, he has, and he doesn't mind being honest and sharing them either. I first came across him probably 5 or 6 years ago, and didn't really know. I discovered Noetic Sciences, okay? And I was just like, oh, this sounds like something fun to research. So I did. And you amaze me, because I think it's such an important thing to be able to share the experiences that you've had, and to understand what the possibilities really are. That's fun. And I love that you're here. I cannot wait to hear your lectures. So I'm excited about that. But what do you think is your favorite that you have experienced to date?
Other than the near-death experience, I think it's what happened to me on Musha Key in the Bahamas. It was it was awesome, and to this day I don't know what triggered it or caused it. And this happened in 2010, and my husband was doing some part-time work for David Copperfield, the magician, who has an island.
Fun.
Yeah, who has an island in the Bahamas called Musha Key. And he'd gone over there a couple of times to work for David, and David wanted him to come back and do some additional things. And he says, well, I'll do it. I'll do it for free if you'll bring my wife over and let her be, stay in one of the cabins on the island, which are when David was on the island, he didn't rent it out. But when he wasn't on the island, he would rent it out and allow people to spend a lot of money and have fun and use his staff, use his staff and have fun on the island. So Jesse said he would do that if David would do. I mean, I can't believe Jesse had the courage to do that, but he did. And so David paid my way over there, the flight and everything. And we went over there, and I had my own little golf cart to tootle around the island on. And we stayed at a place called Beach House that time. We stayed in different places. But anyway, long story short, I was working that day with some of the Bahamian crew, and one of Jesse's colleagues from the Dallas World Aquarium, where Jesse also worked. And I don't know what it was about that day, but we were working on a toucan display that David had two toucans, the big colorful tropical birds with big beaks. And anyway, we were working on that because I was bored. I was tired of work, just being the tourist. I was tired of taking pictures. I was tired of playing in the sun and the surf. I just wanted to do something, be around other people. So I was sitting there digging in the dirt, working on this display with the Bahamian workers. And they thought I was crazy because I was, this educated, touristy woman who chose to get her hands dirty. And they just thought it was weird. So anyway, they got called away except for one of them. And he and I stayed there and worked on it. And I was planting plants around the exhibit, trying to make it look like blend into the scenery, blend into the thing. So I was transplanting plants around it and gardening, tropical gardening. And so anyway, we were just chit-chatting about things that two strangers talk about when, you're in somebody else's world. And so I was talking to him about, he was Rastafarian, and he was a big spiritual leader for a lot of the guys on the island that worked there from the Bahamas. So we were talking about spirituality and various things. I don't know if that triggered it. I don't know what triggered it, but when it came time and the sun was starting to go down and their work time was over. And so I went to the center of the island to find my husband. And as I'm walking through this forested area, I see these crisscrossing lines of what I thought were actual copper wires, like these copper gold wires. I thought somebody had strung up a whole bunch of wires in the forest that were trip hazards. So I'm walking into this dark, semi-darkened forested area, and I feel like I was about to trip over these wires. And then I realized they're not wires. They're actually lines of energy that are attached to everything, and everything was attached to me. So, so everything, like every tree, every bush, every shrub, every rock, every stick, there was a line going from it to me. And so if I would wave my hands around, all these lines would move around. So they attached to my fingertips, It was the strangest thing ever. I was totally...
It's the coolest thing, though.
It was
because
cool.
You were one with all of your
environment. It was scary. Why
was it scary?
Because it was really startling. Because I'm a scientist. Damn it. didn't happen.
And yet,
And yet,
and yet.
so anyway, I quickly made it through that space, that darkness, and back out into the light, and it all went away. So I went and I found my husband, and we kind of talked about what he'd done that day, and he kind of showed me around a little bit, and the sun's going down, so we had to get out of there. So we go back, and we had to go back through that path, through that same, and I kind of like put it past. I'd kind of like gotten past it and figured it was just one more weirdness in my life, you know. But as we entered that again, I just like gasped and grabbed him because it was back when we got in that semi-darkness of that, and everything was back. And so anyway, I had to tell him why I was freaked out.
Right.
He couldn't see anything. Nothing was abnormal to him. He couldn't see any of it. So that really freaked me out too, because it's just me. And so we went on through it and got on the golf cart. And as we went back to Beach House where we were staying, every time we'd go through a semi-darkened area, it would be back. And
oh my gosh.
But when we got to Beach House and all the lights were on, I couldn't see anything. It was all normal. And then later on, we went outside and sitting by the ocean and listening to the waves and looking at the stars, and it was all back. It was gorgeous. And there were like, it was like the Aurora Borealis out over the ocean. I could see these nets of lines. And some of them were just lines, and some of them were like crisscrossed, and some of them were like hexagonal, but they were like weaving in and out like the Aurora Borealis. And some of them were hexagonal like chicken wire. And some of them were like diamond, like woven diamond weave. It was just weird. They were just all these different energies and lines. And so I'm trying to describe all this to him, and he can't see any of it. So eventually had to go to bed because I had to get up and get on the plane the next morning, and he was going to stay, and I had to leave. And so got up the next morning, everything was normal, nothing abnormal at all. Got on the boat, made it to the airport, got on the airplane, and I'm with one of his friends from the Dallas World Aquarium. But we weren't seated together. He was in a different seat. He was on the left side of the plane. I was on the right side. We were both on aisle seats, but he was several rows ahead of me. And anyway, so I'm sitting there, and as we get out over the Caribbean, it's super bright, so everybody puts their windows down. And as soon as it got semi-dark in the plane, what happens? I see all these lines. So
that's so funny.
I'm attached to every person in the plane. I'm attached to all this, you know, every seat, every person, every object in the plane. I'm attached to it. And so I'm sitting there in the aisle, you know, seat, and I'm like, have my hand propped up like this, and I'm like wiggling my fingers and I'm watching the lines dance around. And then I like stretch up over my head, and just I played with it a little bit as much as I could without looking too stupid.
I mean, you might as well.
I might as well. And so I'd gotten comfortable enough with it that I wanted to figure it out. So I think I lost you again.
There we are.
Okay. So anyway, eventually, you know, we got towards, I think it was Fort Lauderdale that we were landing in. And we got towards that, and everybody opens up their windows to see the landing, and it all went away. Right. So then I had to fly again to Dallas, and then get on in my car at Dallas, and everything was normal. I drove home in the dark. Everything was normal until I got home. And then as soon as I stepped out of the car, it was all back, and it was really, really apparent. And all the stars had, the closest thing I can say what it was like would be Van Gogh's Starry, Starry Night. Right. Painting, and the stars had whirls of energy around them, and I was attached to the stars. The stars were attached to each other. It was like my childhood experience that I had when I was 5. All these energies between the stars, and it was beautiful. But all those lines were everywhere. It was gorgeous. And then when I went to bed, I finally had to go inside and check all the animals and all that kind of stuff and be a responsible human, because I had to get up and go to work the next day. And when I went to bed and looked out the window, I could still see it. But the next morning it was gone, and it's never been back to that extent. I still see subtle lines of energy connecting things and like bubbles of energy between things, but I don't see those copper gold lines like I did that time. So that was very profound, because it made me realize everything's connected. Everything. everything's fundamentally interconnected. So, and I got to see it. I got to see the actual.
That is such a gift. I think that's such a gift
It was
because
a moment of grace. I mean, it was absolute grace. So
totally changed your perspective, didn't it?
yeah. So yeah.
I love when we get lessons that are cool like that, and harmless. So harmless are the best. So,
Yeah.
but I have friends that talk about the energy grid, not the power lines, but the actual energy
Mhm.
grid. Is what you were saying something of that nature, do you think? About
I
the
don't know.
interconnectivity?
I think that there's I don't know what I saw. I just profoundly glad that I saw it.
Oh, no doubt. I think
I
that's one of the best
don't
gifts
know.
from the universe I've ever heard of anybody getting.
It was awesome.
Well, that and when you were out in space, that would be like, whoa.
Well, and
I love,
the adult near death experience, to not fear death, to get to exist as a human being and not fear death. It still pisses me off I had to come back, but
what are
but
you
here I
going
am.
to do? I mean, your
What are
time
you
wasn't
gonna do? I'm content to be here until it's time to go again. So are you back?
I have, you know, I have no idea why we keep spinning out of control like that. I guess we're just both wide open. But it's so funny when it does it because I look at Carl and I'm like, yeah, here we go again. So, but I what because you did say that you speak at paranormal conferences and spiritual conferences and things of that nature
No,
because of the different.
I've only no. This will be the
Oh, I
second.
misunderstood you.
No, this
What
is
did
to
you?
be the second conference I've ever spoken at. I attend a lot of them, but not as a
Right.
speaker. Yeah, the only other
Oh,
conference I spoke at was one at Laughlin,
oh,
Nevada,
right.
UFO conference. Yeah,
That's a cool place.
yeah.
I
So
haven't been to that conference, but was it Melinda? Well, Leslie. What's her last name? There's a lady out of Sedona who participates with that conference a lot, and now I've lost her name. So, but did you enjoy that conference?
I did. I didn't enjoy speaking. That was terrifying, but
Was that your
I
first time?
yeah, and I mostly talked about UFOs and Bigfoot. So
Well, yeah, that's kind of a UFO thing.
yeah. So Ray was there that year. He was speaking. He's the reason it was like a week long, so they needed a lot of speakers. So that's why the reason they took a chance on me, I guess. So
Well, I think they made a good decision. So, based on this, I mean, I'm having a blast, even if we do spin out of control periodically. But that's probably an energy thing. I don't know what's going on because I'm on private Wi-Fi, and
oh,
so that should not really be a thing. And I don't know, but for both of us to be doing it is very unusual.
it is
That's
strange.
that's very cool. But not probably for the people watching, but from this perspective of knowing that that doesn't happen, I think it's very cool because it's an energy thing. But well, when you talked about the oversoul,
Mm-hmm.
um, I have someone that I really like a lot who keeps putting out um, kind of like bulletins, and I'm subscribed to her. Her name's Nancy Timms. I love her. I've interviewed her. But she is really putting out a lot of information on the oversoul. And I was not familiar really with the whole concept, other than Emerson, right? And so I'm just kind of like, why is there this much to put out? I mean, why do I get stuff 2, 3 times a week or a day, depending on what's going on about this? What Can you tell people what the oversoul is? Because you had mentioned it briefly. Do you
Well,
mind?
it's a part of that expanded self on the Wiser survey. I'm not sure that I understand it myself. My understanding is that the idea that, well, like when I had my near death experience, I was actually two different distinct entities while I was on the other side. And I have to think that at some point that's my oversoul. But
Right.
my idea of an oversoul is that you have a greater self, a greater soul, and then that sends out little pseudopods of self down into the physical or down into some other aspect of being that maybe they can exist simultaneously, or everything maybe exists simultaneously. I don't know, but the idea that there's an I once saw a drawing of it, and it was like this huge thing with little pseudopods, like I said, sticking down into different lives. Um, I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. But
So
my
it's not
only,
like a personal thing. It's a universal thing.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that much about it, other than what it talked about in the Wiser study, the survey. But I don't really resonate with that so much as I do with, you know, I have a past life memory, that sort of thing. So, and then when I experienced my soul group, that's what I experienced. So, as far as an oversoul, I don't know. I don't know that much about it.
No, either. I'm going to have to run up on that. I guess I could get Nancy to come back on and ask her because she has a lot to say about it, and that's not a bad thing. But without a grasp of the basic understanding, I think then I lose something
Mm-hmm.
from the shares. But I actually, when I first started dealing with noetic science, this was something that I found to be true also because I was in a steep learning curve. And a friend of mine said, check out Dean Rabin. You will
Mm-hmm.
get it. And so, yeah. And that's actually where I came across Ray was, you know, in my research there. And then I've heard him speak a couple of times. And this last time I did was at this we're going to in April.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I just, I love the fact that the Ozark Mountain UFO conference, you're going to love because it's such a personal experience.
Yes.
It's it's a bunch of people who are believers, experiencers, researchers, um, people that are just curious,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody interacts very well together. The lecturers are, I mean, this really is my favorite. The lecturers are very available to talk to, and there's a speakers dinner at the end of the conference where, everybody gets to just kind of intermingle and easily and in a social environment so that you're able to get your questions asked and learn more about each other. And, one of the things that I think that I hope you're going to enjoy as a first time speaker there is how much support there is for all of you. It's people are thrilled. And if you tell them that this is your first UFO conference, they're going to just love on you and want to know why this is, why you're there and
Well, it'll
what
be my
you're.
second one. It'll be my second one, but really,
Well, was Lachlan a UFO conference really?
it was a UFO conference.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
It was.
But I thought it was, but we started talking paranormal stuff, so I got sidetracked with that.
It was
But just tell them
mostly
it's your
UFO.
first one there.
Yeah.
Good night, Raymond. Thank you for being here. Have a great week too. But the most important thing I think is that you are going to know just how much people care about what you do and your knowledge and your information. And when you start, I'm going to be curious because I'm going to be sitting there watching as when you finish people just love on the speakers in a very positive way. I mean, it's not like, woo, groupies. It's like, I'm so glad that, you brought this and you're just, we're so interested in you. And thank you so much for being here. It's going to be such a positive experience for you.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
I'm nervous.
They better not make a liar out of me.
Yeah, they won't. They're nice people. I've been there several times. I only got to go there, I think, once or twice before Dolores Cannon passed.
Oh, I never got to meet her.
Yeah. So she
Was
was
she brilliant?
real down to earth person. Just very, very, very knowledgeable, but very approachable.
From what I understand, she was astounding.
Yeah. Yeah. Very sweet lady.
Yes. And, I think that her energy is still there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because it's her kids and,
Mm-hmm.
Everybody really coming together and just, I don't know, it's a different, because my very first conference was AlienCon, the very first AlienCon.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really big thing, obviously. And it was, that was an eye-opening experience because they had expected 3,000, they got 9,000, 9 to 10,000.
Wow.
And the venue wasn't designed for that. So it was like a cluster. It was a complete cluster. It was a lot of fun, but it was a complete cluster. So, it was just fun and interesting. And, I spent more time with the guy that created it, the producer, I guess he was, than, that's not true. I did get to talk to the guys. It was very, like, all together. But it was fun. And I've been to big ones all over the country. But this one, Eureka Springs, is so it's about the experiencers, it's about the guests, it's about the speakers, it's about, honoring Dolores too. But like I said, I have never had a bad time there. But what do you think now that, because you're an attendee and now you're a speaker, do you have an expectation? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Where are you on that?
I'm pretty nervous, but I've pretty much got the talk prepared, the PowerPoint
Right.
prepared. So just, most of it's going to be telling my stories, and that's easy to do because I lived them. So,
right.
Talking about UFOs, since it's a UFO conference, I'll probably kind of focus on that somewhat, but I'm going to talk about everything, at least touch on everything. So, yeah.
Well, what, other than when you had your experience getting to experience the universe, and, what other UFO stuff are you going to bring?
Well, I've seen a lot of different UFOs in my lifetime. So I've seen everything from the one that I associated with like 3 hours of missing time. I think I've lost you again. Are you back?
Here we are.
Okay.
You're saying you see a lot of different ones.
Yes. And one I associated with missing time was really weird because it was like 2-dimensional. It wasn't 3-dimensional. It was 2-dimensional, and people around me couldn't see it. So that was strange. And then the one I saw with my husband was like, I would say it was like diamond shape or manta ray shape. And I saw that on 2 different occasions. And the second occasion was really strange because we were prepared for it that time. We actually had film in a Minolta camera that was infrared. My husband had learned how to load infrared film because we were both taking photography at the time at a local junior college, and he was taking advanced photography. So he was working with infrared film. So we actually had a camera loaded and ready to take a picture if we ever saw that UFO again.
Did you get it?
No, instead, I remember we were driving and we saw the UFO. I saw the UFO over to my right, and I said, "Look, Jesse, there's that UFO again." And so he leans forward because I like lean back so that he could lean forward and see around me. And he looks over this way and he says, "Oh, you're right." And then we both I remember us both just looking forward like robots, going home and going to bed. This is not us. We
Oh
were
my
crazy.
goodness.
We were young and crazy, and we were determined to get a picture of that thing if ever we had an opportunity. And instead, we, like robots, went home and went to bed and didn't talk about it for like 2 weeks when I started having memories return of it. He won't talk about it to this day.
Really?
He'll talk about the first time we saw the diamond-shaped UFO, but he won't talk about that one.
Does it bother him because y'all were controlled?
He says he doesn't remember it anymore, but he used to say, "I don't want to talk about it." Now he just says, "I don't remember it." Right. He's 72, so maybe he doesn't remember it. I don't know. I don't think so. I think he just doesn't want to talk about it. But I don't know why. He won't talk about it to this day. So
Robert said that's very common, and I've heard about that too, often. So that they're just kind of like, oh, nothing to see here. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain and just go about your business. I mean, that happens a lot. But
and then in 2000, from 2003 to 2012, when we lived in Southeast Oklahoma, on at least a dozen occasions, probably a lot more, I saw a triangular UFO, the conventional triangular UFO with white lights on the corners and a red light underneath, flying low and slow. With.
Are they low enough that you can?
It was only about 400 feet up because I thought it was going to hit the mountain. And I looked later on Google Earth to see what the difference in elevation was between me and the top of the mountain. And it was about 450 feet. And I really thought this thing was going to hit the mountain. But as it got closer, it just gradually went up and just gained altitude and went over it. But
that's so wild.
Almost soundless, quiet. And it had these weird lights coming out of the front of it that the closest analogy I can say is like a lightsaber. They were like, lights go on forever until they peter out. You know what I mean? They get dimmer and dimmer. This wasn't like this. This was like a bright, like if you took a fluorescent tube and stuck it out of the front of the thing, and there were two of them, and they like crossed each other. And I thought they were hitting something in front of them because lights don't just stop. They don't just stop. So to me, it was like there was something in front of it that the lights were hitting, but I couldn't see anything in front of it. So I was real confused. I thought I was going to hit the mountain. I was freaked out. I thought I was going to witness some type of crazy accident with a UFO.
Wouldn't that be enough? That would be.
Yeah. But my husband and I were driving one night, and this same type of UFO flew over our car. It came down the river valley and then made a turn just right in front of us. It was over to the side, and then it flew right across, right in front. And again, I thought I was going to hit the mountain, but it gained altitude and went over. So it usually often had the same flight path. I always felt like it was something made by humans. And in 2018, I actually found a patent. I don't know if you've ever seen that patent by the U.S. government that talks about an inertial craft. Anyway, the patent was filed on behalf of the U.S. government by the Department of the Navy, the Admiral of the Navy or something like that. So it's an actual patent. It's called craft using an inertial mass reduction device. Anyway, and it talks about anti-gravity. It talks about incredible speeds. It talks about negating gravity. It talks about all these things that sound like Tic Tacs and things like that.
Wow.
But if you Google PAX, PAX 205, it talks about PAX 205. If you just Google that, it shows you the PDF that the person that filed this patent, I shouldn't say that, the scientist behind the patent, he had to give a brief to the patent officer in order to get this patent to go through because it was so woo-woo. It was so crazy.
Oh, gosh.
Because it talks about anti-gravity. It talks about, let's see, aerospace vehicle, underwater craft. Anyway, it talks about going from outer space to, to conventional, atmosphere, to undersea with no change in velocity and all this
It
stuff.
says that on the patent?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Robert's got it in chat now.
Okay.
A U.S. Navy patent application by Salvatore Pais
Pais
for an inertial mass reduction device.
Yes.
I love Robert Gorman.
Yes. And one of the things that really bugged me was it talked about in that briefing that he gave to the patent officer, he talks about this can be local space-time modification on a grand scale, and then he puts in parentheses, planetary scale. Yeah, it's possible. Space-time manipulation on a planetary scale, and we think that we need to be messing with that? So my attitude is if this thing looked to me like something a human would make, and if they're already talking about a patent that can modify space-time, if you can modify space to the point where you can change gravitational properties of something and reduce inertia to where you can have these super high velocities without squishing a soft human inside. If you can have all that modification of space, then you can modify time as well. And it could be a time machine. And we could be seeing, I could have seen something from our future that they were coming or our past. Yeah. I'm just saying, I mean, it opens up a lot of speculation. But yeah, look up the PAX 205. It'll blow your mind. And this was, this is a FOIA. This is a FOIA. Yeah, this is a FOIA from the U.S. Navy. And they had to disclose it. So it's a PDF, and it's not even. I can't
believe I've never heard of this. With what I do, I cannot believe I've never heard of this.
Yeah.
So that's why when you were telling me, I was like, no. So after I read it and when we see each other, we're going to have a chat.
Okay.
So, I have just been having the best time. I hope that you have too, even with our little spin outs.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is, but it's probably because of the topic that happens. There's not anything that should be affecting my Wi-Fi. Certainly not both of us.
Should be spring break on your end. Maybe everybody's on it.
No, mine's private.
Oh, no. Okay.
So no.
Mine is too. It's crazy.
It's just weird. But I will tell you that a lot of times, and Carl will tell you too, that when I talk about, especially UFO, government kind of things, whatever, stuff happens sometimes, and and here we are again. But it's just, and Robert could probably tell you too, because it's actually, I've done fate for 5 years, and I've done a lot of different topics, and normally I have more trouble when I'm talking about ufology and this kind of stuff than I do when I'm talking about ghosts and demons and stuff. So it's just like, okay, I think I know what I'm not supposed to talk about, but I'm gonna. So
what's crazy is that same US patent that I'm talking about has a diagram in it showing a triangular craft, and it shows a diamond-shaped craft. And I've seen both. And when I saw both of them, they reminded me of something that a human would make. But yet I've seen a UFO that I didn't think a human could make. It looked like a drop of mercury in the sky. It looked like a silver sphere. And the only thing I've ever seen like it is in Travis Walton's book, Fire in the Sky. There's a color plate in there that shows a craft in the background, shows him walking through a hangar, and there's a craft in the background that looks exactly like what I saw. It looks like a silver ovoid. It's not quite spherical. It's more of an ovoid, kind of flattened, like if you took a drop of mercury and it was floating in the sky, and it was like flattened, and it wobbled. It had a wobble to it.
Like a drop.
That did not look like something a human could make, and it ascended at an incredible rate. And then it went around a cloud it was almost like it was interacting with me. I was trying to think, this is a weather balloon, and then it went against the wind. And I'm like, well, how can it be a weather balloon if it's going against the wind? And then as it ascended up to the cloud level, it went around the cloud this way, and then it came back around and went around this way. And then I realized I had binoculars, and I reached down to grab my binoculars out of the console. And when I glanced down to adjust them, just a second, and I glanced away for just a second, and I glanced back up, and it was gone, and the cloud that it had just gone around was gone. So it was weird. So that one I don't think was a human, but the triangular one and the diamond-shaped one, I just think it could be us, not necessarily in this current time, but at some point.
Well,
So,
I am so...
I know that probably sounds weird.
No, that does not sound weird, because, you know, if we can, I firmly believe that there are capabilities to manipulate time. So I've lost time before. And to my knowledge, I have not had an abduction experience, but I have lost time. So it's an interesting concept. But I was starting to say we're out of time again, but we're gone again. So thank you so much for coming on with me. And I have had the best time with this conversation, because I learned things, and I love when that happens. I love being, I'm always surprised by what I didn't know. And so I absolutely love it. And Robert said that y'all just going like robots going home. He said the TKO, telepathic knockout. So yeah. I mean, people have shared that with me so many times, and I know you've heard it too. It happens. I mean, it's almost like you're under a robotic control. And Robert said, bless both of us. Thank you, Robert. Bless you too. I just love when you're in my chat. So, in fact, for everybody listening, Anthony Lewis, yes, big time. If you lose over last year, we have lost a few timelines. I think so too. I think that there's a lot of misdirection happening left and right. So
it's really strange times.
It's very strange times. Yeah. But you know what? May we live in interesting times. It's not just a toast. It's not just a toast. But, well, thank you again. And for everyone listening, thank y'all so much. We will be back next week. Same cat time, same cat channel. And Paranormal Experiences on Wednesday nights. Also, same cat time, same cat channel. So take care. Be blessed. Rick McCollum, if you're listening to this, you are one of my best friends, and I'm one of your biggest fans. So you get well. I'll talk to you soon. And everybody, y'all be blessed too. Thanks for being here. Good night.